Let's now welcome in Mark Titus, 8th grade basketball legend, member of the Ohio State Final Four squad, legendary team that was, founder of the infamous Club Trillion, host of big time, podcast hit show Titus and Tate, but more importantly, a dear friend of mine, Mark.
Oh, wow.
Welcome to the show.
Wow, that was nice. What an introduction. 8th grade basketball legend. That is the first time I've ever been described as that, but I will take it. I will gladly take it. A lot of people would be annoyed with the fact that they peak in 8th grade, but at least I peaked, man. You know what I mean? Some people never peak, and at least I peaked. And I was 14 years old when I did it, but what a peak it was.
Well, I'll say this. Peaking at 14, that can be a brutal time socially. So if you're going to peak, it's not a terrible time to peak.
Duncan, have I ever told you that the one time I ever dunked in my life in an organized game where there were referees and they were keeping score and everything, the only time I ever dunked was in 8th grade. I swear to God, I was 6'4". I dunked in 8th grade. And I remember my dad was the high school athletic director. And I remember going to the high school, I had a day off or something like a week later. And I went to visit my dad at work and I was just sitting in his office, and some girls on the senior soccer, they were seniors. They were on the girls soccer team, coming to my dad's office to ask him about something. And they saw me and they were like, "Oh, you dunked in a game." And I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, I think it ruined me. I think at that point I was like, I'm never practicing basketball again. I'm moving to Hollywood. I'm a star. I'm the biggest.
Wait, so what's this, were the rims low? What's going on here? Because how does it only happen once, and how does it only happen once?
No, what happened was I hit a growth spurt very young. I mean, I was always so much bigger than everyone else. I was the kid, if I was playing Little League baseball, if I was in the Little League World Series, I would be the guy that everyone was asking to see your birth certificate and all that sort of. I had facial hair.
Almonte.
Yeah. I had facial hair when I was like 12 or 13. I was, so I was just always bigger than everyone, but I was really lanky and tall, obviously, because I was growing faster in my body. And then I stopped growing and I started growing out wide is what happened. So as I started getting fatter, it became harder to jump. And then I realized three is worth more than two, which I'm sure you respect. And I was like, you only get two for dunking. I might as well live by the 3-point line. So that's kind of what happened.
I mean, I feel like you're underselling a little bit. You still end up on campus at Ohio State. And as a freshman, you guys are now one of the better teams in the country. Mm-hmm. At that point, when you're on campus there, are you thinking guys here get drafted every year? If I can work my way into a role, I can make some shots, I can start to figure some things out. This could be on the horizon.
So I didn't have NBA dreams at that point because that would have been a little too delusional even for me. But I definitely had in the rotation dreams for sure. I had I thought. Because the thing that people don't realize, the handful of people that know my story, what they don't understand is because I've made my brand the bench warmer. That's what I've become. I leaned into that heavily. They don't realize when I was on AAU team with Greg Oden and Mike Conley and Josh McRoberts and Eric Gordon and Daquan Cook and I played with 5 NBA players on the AAU team. I played a lot. I played a lot in these games, Duncan. I swear to God, I got in a lot. I remember we played Southern California All-Star team one time, Chase Budinger, Brandon Jennings, Kevin Love. There were 8 or 9 NBA guys on the court. I had 21 points. I remember it vividly. I was playing, and so I say that to give the backstory of so when I get to Ohio State, I'm playing with Mike. I've played with Mike and Greg my whole life. Yeah, they were better than me, but I was I'm not starstruck, or I'm not I don't feel like I'm in over my head with this. I was yeah, I've taken Mike one-on-one and beaten him, in time and practices before, so in my mind, I was all right, I'm a freshman. I'm not playing because we're the #1 team in the country. And I didn't think I was going to play in college anyway. So when I got there and they asked me to walk on, I was out of shape, and it took me a while to get back in shape and everything. So I was I'm fine. It'll be all right. My sophomore year, I was I'm going to play this year. This is Mike and Greg and Daquan, they go to the NBA. We're not as good. We end up being an NIT team. John Diebler's a freshman on that team. He's shooting 29% from the 3-point line. And I swear to God, every day in practice, I'm I don't understand what's going on. I'm wet as shit. This guy's bricking everything. Like, what the hell's going on? And so we go through the whole season. I play less that year than I did on the Final Four team because we weren't blowing teams out as much.
Right.
And I was like, what the hell just happened? Like, we suck and I'm playing less. How is this happening? And I think at that point that's actually when I started my blog. Cause after that year, I was like, oh, I'm never playing here. And I talked to Coach Mata about it after towards the end of my senior year. I was like, Coach, shoot me straight. Like, did I ever have should I have taken this more seriously? Do you think I would have ever had a chance? And he's like, I'll tell you this, Mark, you are 10 times the player you were when you showed up to campus, but I was never playing your ass. And I was like, what? He goes, I'm giving scholarships to the other guys. Like, what sense does that make? If I'm recruiting a guy, I'm spending 5 years recruiting a guy, giving him a scholarship, and I'm just going to play you over him? No, that's not happening. And I was like, I respect it. I respect it.
Yeah, the transparency is definitely respectable. You mentioned, I think you said at the end of your sophomore year, you start kind of leaning into the bench warming stuff, the Club Trillion stuff. Was that something that was that like kind of a tough situation to navigate of like, look, I want to be taken seriously here as a player, but this is like a legitimate opportunity to utilize this platform and tap into something that people are like willing and kind of excited to get behind. Yeah,
it was weird, man, because I was definitely playing a character early on, and especially like people that know me in my private life know that they're not so much anymore, but definitely back then, I'm like the shyest guy in the world, man. Like I'm the guy that goes to parties and I sit in the corner and just like don't talk to anybody. I'm scared to meet people, and I'm not that way anymore. But I am very reserved. For like I get paid to talk for a living. If you went to dinner with me, like I'll just kind of let other people swallow all the oxygen in the room, you know. So when I was doing the blog and everything, I just felt like it was like an alter ego of a guy who was proud that he sucked at basketball, because I also wasn't particularly proud, you know. Like I think it was sort of like an ego thing for me where I felt like if I got ahead of it, if I made fun of myself first, then people couldn't make fun of me for sitting on the bench. And so that's how it started. And then it became popular and people loved it. So I did get caught in this weird thing where like I'm telling stories about how bad I am at basketball and how I'm not taking this seriously. Meanwhile, every day in practice, like I'm going at Evan Turner's neck, like trying to kill him. And it's not working, but like that's my mindset is like I would have my favorite days of practice as a walk-on scout team guy were the days where we had to come back later that night because I was torching the team. Like this happened a handful of times where they're running like defense and I'm the scout offense. And I'm torturing him, and Coach Mata just gets pissed. He's like, all of you go home. We're coming back later tonight. And I'm like, I'm the one guy in the locker room smiling, and all of them are getting so mad at me. They're like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. Like, I took practices very seriously. I was trying to be good. I was trying to, you know, be as good of a basketball player as I could be. But then, every night I'd go like write these blogs where I'm like, all right, so practice today, I went and took a shit for 2 hours and then, I was on my phone all day. And like, that became like my personality, you know? So like, that was kind of interesting. And then I will say by the time I was a senior, like the tail end of my senior year, that was reality. Like I'd worked myself into the shtick. Like that was like really what I was doing there.
You're manifesting that. You're just manifesting.
Yeah,
I'm curious. Yeah. It's really interesting to hear you talk about how you were in real life and you weren't, a talkative guy. It's interesting that you were blogging, right?
Yeah.
When Duncan was in college, he started a podcast. Mm-hmm. Do you think if you were a couple years later, would you have been comfortable doing a podcast, or is it almost like you were comfortable hiding behind the?
That's a good question.
I can just write the words.
That's a great question. I haven't thought about it. I like to think I would have done a podcast because like all the thought that went into it with the blog was just that that was the thing of the day. I mean, it's people that are a little younger probably like they can't put themselves in what it was like in the 2008-9 era, but like that was, if Twitter really wasn't a thing yet, Facebook was, but you didn't really use it as a platform to like build a brand per se. It was just more for like buddies you went to high school with and chicks you're trying to hit on. Like that's pretty much all that was. So the idea of like building a media kind of outlet, the only outlet was a blog. So like that's all the thought I put into it. But I think Davis, you made a good point there. Like maybe that was like a blessing in disguise. If I start a podcast, people are like, this guy's a weirdo. Like this guy sucks.
But so when did that
doesn't take up?
When did that change happen? When did you start? When was the first time that you were, okay, now it's my voice?
I don't know. I mean, I think it just kind of happened naturally where as I started blogging, I turned that into, when I graduated, I became a writer for Grantland. And then I would just start talking, like you just start networking with people and you meet more people and you talk to them and you start having conversations with strangers. And that's really what it was, is like having the muscle to just like interact with people about basketball, and you just find yourself like going to dinners with strangers and talking to them about basketball, and you're like, yeah, I could do this. I could sit in front of a microphone and let it rip. And it wasn't easy at first. I mean, it took me a while to kind of get used to it, to the rhythms of all this and that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. It wasn't really a conscious thing. I think it was like when you're young and dumb, you just kind of put your head down and you're like, I don't know any better, I'm just going to do it. And then, that's kind of how it works. I mean, young people are more willing to take risks, and as you get older in life, you're like, I can't do that. Like that's scary, or that, what if I suck at it or whatever. And I just didn't really have those thoughts back then.
Tell, if you don't mind, tell the story of when Bill Simmons first reached out to you initially, just because I remember you telling me that, and it's just like, it's crazy to hear that that's how it started, and then to see what it ultimately became.
Yeah, so I've been writing my blog for a little while, and it got a fair amount of attention, but it wasn't like a thing, I wouldn't say. It was definitely not like a career. It wasn't like anything I was like, this could be a career or anything like that. And then one day I get an email from it was at AOL.com email address. And it was very I don't know how to describe, like, if it was a scam, if someone was scamming or trying to pretend to be Bill Simmons, this was the type of email address they would come up with. You know what I mean? and the email address and in the email is just basically like, hey, I like what you're doing. Will you come on my podcast? This is Bill Simmons. And that's like all they said. And I was like, this is 100% a scam. I wasn't 95% sure it was a scam. I was 100% convinced it was a scam. So I sent it to my buddy who, is like a little more online, we'll say, than I was. And I was like, look at this. Like, do you think this is like, am I going to get my identity stolen? Should I respond to this? Whatever. And he's like, I don't know, man. I remember reading a column one time that Bill said he loved using AOL, even though he knew it made him an old man. So he's like, it might be him. I don't know. He's like, what's the harm? And I said, well, if I email him back, am I in trouble? He's like, no, it's just an email back. Like, you're not giving him your address or your social security. I was like, all right, I'll email him back. I email him back, and I'll be goddamned, it was Bill Simmons, and he asked me to come on his podcast. And at this point, I mean, you want to talk about like not being good at this or being nervous or whatever. So he goes, listen, you have to. This is the part of the story that I forgot about this. He goes, I want you to be on a landline phone because it makes the connection better. And I don't want you to drop the call, whatever. And I was like, yeah, whatever you need, Bill. And that's what he said in the email. So I'm just like, all right, I got to find a landline phone. Cause like, if I'm on his podcast and the call drops, I'll never get over the fact that like, I could have been on Bill's podcast and I blew it. So, but at the same time, I thought our SID at Ohio State wouldn't let me do it. And I was scared I was going to go to him and be like, hey, Bill Simmons. Cause Bill back then, like he was kind of the, I don't know if like problem child would be but he was like the anti-establishment guy, like, and I felt like Ohio State would have been like, no. We stay in our lane. We don't do this like other podcast. No, you'll go on the local radio show or you'll do nothing. So my solution was I found this tiny office in the trainer's room. There's like a side room that had a phone on it. And I was like, I'm just going to go to that phone and I'm going to call in from there and I'm going to do it there. But the phone didn't work. And this was the day of the interview because I had this whole plan. I saw the phone. I was like, all right, it'll work. And the phone didn't work because it wasn't plugged in because no one had used it. And I panicked. And then I was like, fuck, I gotta ask I guess I got to ask the coach. So I go to the coach's SID. I was like, hey, late notice, but this thing came up and he's like, what the hell? Why didn't you tell us? Yeah, let's do it. Let's set it up. So they set it up and I go on Bill's show and I was horrible and I was scared and like, it was just nerve wracking and people killed me afterward. And they're like, this guy's boring and all that. But yeah, that was pretty much it. But the blog blew up after that because it was just like, again, this was like pre-Twitter, pre-everything else. So like people never really got to see behind the curtain. They never, we didn't have NBA players doing podcasts back then. We didn't have college players like talking to anybody about anything. So the idea of a guy who's on, and in Ohio State, we had pretty good teams back then. So people were like, oh my God, this kid's just letting it rip, telling stories about Evan Turner and John Diebler and David Lighty and on down the line. And so people loved it, and it really took off, because I was like, I served as like all of those guys' personal Twitter accounts. It was like filtered through me, and then I put my own spin on it and made them all look stupid, and then I sent it out to the world. That's pretty much
you monopolized the narrative.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I monopolized their narrative. Yeah,
strategic. I love it. I want to address something, somewhat of the elephant in the room here. A viral tweet that I believe has been misconstrued by various media outlets, whether it be Part of My Take.
I want Davis's opinion on this, because he's going to be the.
I feel, but before we get to Davis's, I feel that it's been pushed as you being opportunistic, clout chasing, and I just want to set the record straight right here and right now that really it was just what I believe to be a special moment between two friends, that you were just happy for me, and it was a recounting of our friendship and our history, and you just wanted to make that public and let everyone know. And I want you to know that there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to state that publicly.
Duncan, that means a lot to me. I really, that really does, because this is one of my great fears in life. Is I've been blessed to know many guys in the NBA, which is a very douchey thing to say out loud, but it's just like the truth. And I like, for example, Mike Conley. I have known Mike Conley since we were in second grade, and I've played basketball with Mike Conley since we were in the 8th grade, 7th grade. Something like, I've known him my whole life basically, and I'm very close with him. This is my Stephen A. I've broken bread. I've met his family. I've held his son in my arms. So I have never once asked Mike Conley to do anything. I've never once asked to interview him for an article. I've never once asked to have him on my show, and I'm terrified to do it, because I feel like the moment I do that, it breaks the wall of like, oh, you're using me for whatever. So I am like very against that sort of thing. I think the reason, like, frankly, the reason we had you on the show early on, Duncan, was because like you weren't my friend. I was just like, you're just a dude that plays for Michigan. And like, I talked to you on the phone a couple of times. I was like, this is a pretty great story. You should come on the show. And we were at Summer League the one time, and I was like, yeah, dude, this would be awesome. We should have Duncan on. And I didn't really. So the point is, I'm very averse to that. But yeah, man, I was watching you guys beat the Celtics, and I don't know, like I just like was overcome with emotion, because like it's as cool as you've played it, you're this since you've got to the league and you've ascended to what you've become and everything. I don't know. There are people in Davis. This is why I want to hear your thoughts on this, because I have not been around as long as you. I'm not as close to Duncan as you are, and even I was like, holy shit, this is just so cool. This is like so cool to just see a guy who it's just a great story. And never mind, like, I wasn't trying to make you out to be Rudy, who was, I wasn't trying to do anything like that. I was just like, I genuinely thought you were an awesome dude. I thought like the one time when we first started talking and you reached out to me about, your thing in Michigan, I was like, that's a kid who has his head on his shoulder straight, and I'm going to root for him, even though he goes to Michigan and all that. And so just for me to be along the ride the whole way, that senior year when I didn't think you guys were all that good that year, to be honest with you. And you guys almost lose to Houston, and Swaggy Poole hits the shot to beat Houston and keep the run alive. And like, I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. Duncan's doing this. And then you guys come out to LA, and that was cool too, because I remember your Sweet 16 Elite 8 games were coming to LA, and I was in LA at the time, and I was like, oh my God, it's all happening. And but even then I thought that was the end. I thought you guys, you lose to Villanova, and I was like, what a fun run that was. And so
Duncan's never going to play basketball again.
Yeah, he's never going to play again. Like, I can't wait for him to host the podcast with me. So I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm glad you saw it that way, because that's all it was for me. It was like, it was just spur of the moment. Like if I could have tweeted that and turned off retweets and likes and whatever else, like I totally would have. I shouldn't have even tweeted. It was just kind of like a instinctive like fuck. And I just like, I pulled out my phone and I was like, I wonder if I have any. And then I read the text message that you sent me, and then that's why I screenshot and put that out. But I read the text message and I was like, this son of a bitch. Like, cause you're just like, hey, I don't know. You're such a nerd about it. You're like, Mr. Titus. I don't know if this is, I don't remember what it actually said, but that's how I read it. It was like, hi, Mr. Titus. My name's Duncan. And
it's basically really what it was.
Like, yeah. So anyway, man.
Mark, I was fully prepared to give you shit and say that you were clout chasing. But you gave a pretty good answer and a very real answer. And so to answer your question, it's this very strange balance. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but it's a very strange balance with Duncan of like, there are moments where it still doesn't feel real, especially when he's playing in the NBA finals against LeBron, but he also belongs. So you don't want to come across to like, dude, this is insane. Oh my God. Cause it's like, no, you're good enough to be here. You've proven that.
And it's not the finish line either. I mean, like there's a part of that too, where it's like, we start patting you on the back too much. And it's like, you did it. And in your mind, you're like, I just got here, dude. Like I got a lot to prove still, and I'm still hungry and all that. And I get that too. So, I don't know. I don't completely regret doing it, but, I'm sorry for what happened. I will say, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. It was supposed to be like, in my mind, I thought if it gets any traction, it would just be with like people who listen to my show and know that we've had you on and talked to you about, it was for like the people that have been in whatever little universe I've built for myself. And then we brought you in when you were on the Michigan team and all that. So like, it was for those sorts of people. I didn't expect like the nerds of NBA Twitter to go nuts and be like,
well, let me tell you how big of a deal it became. And I think I may have told you this either over the phone or via text, but it got to the point where, so you tweeted it after game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. 2 days later, we have our finals media availability. And I go over, to the Zoom session, and I want to say my first 4 questions were about that tweet. And somehow here I am getting ready to play in the NBA Finals, and reporters just can't stop asking me about Mark Titus. Like, that's just all I'm getting.
I think I don't. I mean, what I really feel bad about is like, I'm scared they're gonna ask you about it for years. like you go a part of my take and they bring it up. I told you I watched the video for like 10 seconds and I cringed out. I was like, I can't do this. This is too much. Like, I feel so bad for Duncan what I've done to you.
I think part of it is that, particularly like the media people that are asking me the questions, is that they're like obsessed with the fact that they now view me as one of them.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like,
dude, it doesn't help that you have a podcast now. I mean,
that's true.
Right. He's playing
that's true. But we're not mainstream media, which neither are you. We try to, fill that other lane, if you will. But yeah, man, no, it's unfortunate that it's been painted as what it is, but looking back on it, it's so funny to think of the conversation that we had when we did, and just to see how everything is kind of matriculated. It's crazy.
Davis, you got to back me up on this. So I think Duncan downplays it like at least like 5% of,
for sure.
You definitely, because the story, again, we've talked about it. Like, the story that is being thrown out there is that you thought you were never going to play basketball again. And you thought like, the moment your career's over at Michigan, you're going to go straight into like starting a blog and try to, make $20,000 at the Boston Herald, trying to, cover minor league baseball. Like, that was the story that was put out there. And then I feel like some small part of you fought back a little too much, and you took the attitude, Duncan, of like, that's bullshit. I knew all along I was going to make it. And I felt like that's a little wrong too. I feel like it's,
Yeah. The story picks up steam because there's some truth behind it, for sure.
A little bit of, right?
Imagine if Zion sent that text. Like, no one would think, it was like, oh, it was just for a class.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, Duncan, you have admitted many times on this podcast that you didn't think you were going to be playing basketball in the NBA.
But whenever Duncan gets asked about it, I always see him be like, no, that was BS, man. Like, I knew, like, I was just doing it for like a stupid project. It was like, whatever. I didn't care, whatever.
No, I was doing my due diligence in that, for sure. I thought that there was a chance that I wouldn't be playing basketball. I mean, obviously at some point I thought the ball was going to stop bouncing, and it still will. But for sure, it was more so just that I was a fan of The Ringer. I was a fan of your work, and I thought we had the connection, so it made sense. But you're right. It wasn't like I apologize if that's what you've gotten from my responses.
Dude,
I'm like scoffing at like, oh yeah, that peasant Mark Titus and his tweets. Like, no, it wasn't that.
I love that you and I are going to be apologizing to each other about this.
Right. Yeah. Can we just drop it? Can we end it? Can this be the end of it? And that's for everyone. Can the media stop asking about it?
Please just stop asking. Davis, you brought up something interesting earlier, though, that I've always wanted to ask Duncan. I know you're supposed to ask me the questions, but I'm fascinated about.
No,
this
take it over.
So this idea of part of what I love about you, and I'm trying not to make this too romantic, but like part of what I got, part of what made me a fan of yours, and when we were talking, and I was like, that's a kid. That kid's going places, and I want to, keep in touch with him or whatever. Is your humility. You are just like an average, I say this lovingly, like an average dude. You don't have a big head about you. Even when we talk to you now, like you have every right to be like, I'm hot shit now, whatever. And you're not that way. But there is the challenge that David said, like you're guarding LeBron James in the NBA finals, and you can't have that attitude of like, oh shucks, it's what a dream for me to be here on this court. And I guess if I make it personal, like one thing for me, as I've gone on in my career is like, I value that too. Like my parents instilled in me like humility and never think you're more important than anyone else and all that kind of stuff. And I'm grateful for it. And I like to think I'm a decent person, but I have this now as I work at Fox Sports and I live in Los Angeles and I drive to the Fox lot. And there's the Die Hard tower. The tower that they filmed Die Hard is in the shadow. The shadow of that is where I work. And I share an office. Like Colin Cowherd's doing a show right next to me as I'm doing my show. He's like right there. And Tate and I are doing it. And the point is like sometimes I'm walking through and I'm overcome with imposter syndrome. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I feel like that is sort of good. Like the humility gets carried. That's so I guess my point is like, is that something that you're even conscious of like also be humble, but also you have to feel like you belong and you have to be confident in yourself, because I do struggle with that sometimes for me. And I feel like you and I, like, I'm not trying to equate myself to you. You're far more successful than I am, but I think we are similar in that regard. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Dude, you literally just described my entire life, basically. Like that is my day-to-day internal conflict, struggle. And it's not even a struggle in terms of it's like this really hard, challenging thing, but more so my like internal battle of like just trying to navigate it and like trying to be on both sides of that. Because I think, like you said, it's incredibly important to have that perspective of, for me, I always think of all the reasons or little areas in my career which I don't end up where I am and how fragile that is, and being appreciative of how those things did break my way. But then also like the competition side of it, like when you step onto the line, and particularly in the NBA, like you can't show weakness. Like, it's no boys allowed, whatever you want to call it. Like that's very real too. So to like navigate that is like the ultimate struggle. I think there are ways to do it, and I don't have like the dual personality like you hear about. Like Beyonce has like Sasha Fierce, when she's performing, it's like she's a different person.
Yeah.
I don't have like my own name for it, but I absolutely have a different personality like on the court. Like people get surprised all the time, and I'm not like a rampant shit talker, but like I will engage, occasionally, or like if I get hot and hit a couple, like I'll let people know about it. And people are always kind of taken back because they'll like, especially now, hear my podcast and, like you said, I'm just kind of like I'd like to consider myself literally just like a regular person, you know what I mean? Which I am, like that's what I am. But there's definitely that line. So I can totally 100% relate to, like you saying, hearing Colin Cowherd down the hall and being like, damn, like, first of all, it's crazy that I'm really here.
Yeah.
Knowing that you have like, you're capable and you're talented enough and you've put in the time and work to be here, because that's important too, but still having the perspective to understand that you can still have all of that, do all the right things, and it's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, we've now tapped into that we are connected, in a psychological way. do you ever look at me play basketball and say, I could be that guy? If I came around 8 to 10 years later, I could be that guy.
Are you kidding me, dude? Like everything I said, I'm just full of shit, dude. The only reason I keep you close to me is because I'm trying to like steal your DNA somehow and like figure out a way to like somehow do a bait and switch situation. Yeah, man. That's I don't know. I've kind of gotten used to sucking at basketball
but you were ahead of your time. That's all it was.
Yeah, I know. That's what's frustrating. Actually, people. My question for you is this: do you ever get frustrated that I mean, it's awesome that 3-point shooters, you know, like that's pretty much what the NBA's become. It's just like everyone jacks threes, obviously. But I feel like I kind of get pissed off about it because like I used to be a commodity. Like when I was growing up, like no one else could shoot, and I was the guy. If no one's hitting, they're like, that's why I got a lot of run in the AAU games because I was the guy who could shoot. So like they throw a 2-3 zone out there to try to stop Greg Oden. They'd throw me in the game and I stretch the floor. And it's like, this is great. And now all of a sudden, like if Greg Oden's coming up now and we're sophomores in high school, he's getting coached to like pick and pop and shoot threes and shit. And then they don't need me anymore. So I don't know. But yeah, you do play, again, I'm saying this with all the humility in the world, and I'm in no way saying I'm anywhere close to as good as you, but you do play exactly how I tried to play when I was like in high school and I was good. Like that, like watching you play is like exactly. So I do enjoy that as well. Like just watching, I don't know. I feel I'm going to stop talking now because I feel like this is not going well with like, I could just feel like the internet saying, does this asshole really think that he's like Duncan's level? So I'm going to go ahead and stop. I'm going to hit the eject button and just be like, I don't like where this is going.
No, I love where that was going. It also took me to your Mr. Rainmaker video because, you know, certified shooter. I noticed at the end of that video, you list everyone you need to thank.
I have no idea where this is going because I don't remember who I put it.
Well, it's a long list, but the one that the one that creates the most questions for me is you needed to thank the values of Coldwater, Ohio.
Oh yeah. Coldwater, Ohio. It is a small town in Ohio. They asked me to throw out the first pitch at a wiffle ball tournament when I was a senior in college. There's this wiffle ball tournament that they have in Coldwater in some guy's backyard that he started for his dead dog. His dog died and they started like a memorial wiffle ball tournament for it. I believe that's the story. And I show up on Friday night. The wiffle ball tournament was on Saturday morning. I show up on Friday night because I just want to get a lay of the land. And one of the guys like reached out to me. He's like, yeah, you could just crash on my couch or something. I was like, all right, cool. So I go up. There's like one bar in town. And I walk in the bar not having any idea what to expect. And the owner of the bar knew who I was. And he's like, Titus, come with me, pulls me to the back of the bar and just like opens up the coolers, like take whatever you want. And it's just like,
that's legendary status right there.
It was exactly right. So I remember I'm carrying around a gallon of cherry bomb. They made like cherry bombs, put it in like a milk car. I'm carrying around just ripping straight from the thing. I got 2 beers in my back pocket and I got like a beer in my other hand. And I'm just, that was all I was doing. I had so much alcohol on my body and in my body at all times. I had the time of my life. Later that night, we go to like someone's backyard and they got trucks pulled into the backyard with the lights turned on and like shitty country music. I love country music, but they were playing the shitty kind. And I was just looking around. I was like, this place is unbelievable. Like I'm a rural guy. I'm from middle of nowhere, Indiana, and I've never been somewhere like this. I've never stayed like this. So I don't know. So at the time, I think when I made the video, I was like, shout out to those people because you guys are good people that they showed me a good time. I've never been back. I don't think I want to go back, honestly. I think like that's one of those deals where it's like
once is enough.
Once is enough.
All right, Mark, we can wind it down here, but I have a quick question just about your kind of career and your path. Is there a moment or an experience that you felt was pivotal in terms of kind of serving as a springboard or a catalyst towards, what we see today? Whether it be a conversation, a learning experience, a break that you felt kind of went your way, anything that really sticks out to you?
Yeah. So when Grantland folded, it was the 2016 season, the college basketball season. It was like October. I think it was Halloween 2015. was when we got the call that Grantland was no more. And I was still under contract at ESPN. So I was, they told us the website was no more, but we're going to pay you throughout your contract. So basically what I heard was like, you're not going to work during this season, but we're still going to pay you. So I was like, that's pretty cool, whatever. So when March rolled around, I didn't do anything. It was unbelievable. I grew out a beard. I got fat. It was unbelievable. I was getting a full salary to do nothing. So when March rolled around, I was still technically an ESPN employee. So Scott Van Pelt reached out to me and he was like, hey, we're doing ESPN's letting me do a Selection Sunday special. And I want you to be involved in it. And I was like, oh, what? Because I'd gone on to Van Pelt's show a handful of times. Like Van Pelt's great at this. It's like he'll find bloggers or like kind of quirky people that he feels are like really passionate about what they're covering. He'll have them on a show and give them a platform. He's awesome about that. And I was one of those guys. I was like his college basketball guy. He'd have me on to talk Maryland and Big Ten and stuff. So I'd gone on a few times, but he's like, I want you for the selection show. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And he's like, but I want you to come to Bristol for it. And I was like, oh my God. So he brings me to Bristol. It's me and him and Billis and Kara Lawson, I think, were like that was it. That was the team. That
dynamic crew right there.
Yeah. Wow.
That was going to be the team for the selection show. And we were going opposite the CBS show. The CBS is doing their whole show, the real show, and we're like the alternative programming. And I remember like at this point, I had never been on like real TV. I'd done the hits with Van Pelt. I've never been in like a real TV studio with like multiple cameras and like just producers walking around and like pointing at the thing, like 3, 2, like the whole scene, So I'm getting a lay of the land and we're doing these production meetings and all that. And I'm like, I'm shitting my pants. And Van Pelt can tell because he's like, he pulls me aside. And he's like, listen, man, how you feeling? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I mean, if we talk basketball, I can do that, but like, I'm a little overwhelmed by the whole scene, the whole day. He goes, and this is the point. This is the thing. It stuck with me. I will never forget this. And this is why this is a thing I always think of when I'm asked questions like this. He said, listen, man, I don't need you to be Jay Billis. I got Jay Billis here to be Jay Billis. I need you to be Mark Titus. That's why I wanted you here. I need you to just go out there and be Mark Titus. And he said that, and I felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders because I was so nervous about being asked about like some efficiency rating for some team and not being prepared. And basically he was saying like, that's not what we want you for. We want you to just go out, let it rip, man, do what you do. And I've carried that, like, honest to God, like I felt like I was a poser in this career up until that point. Like I was trying to like emulate other people. Like I was trying to like do a little bit of what Bill Simmons is doing, take a little bit of what Van Pelt is doing. And that was kind of the moment where I was like, I'm free to just be myself. And if like people don't like me, that's fine. They're not going to like me. As Evan Turner once said, Jesus was hated too.
That's real.
You really said that. So I that was a big moment for me. And then I go out, we do the show. I remember Stephen F. Austin and West Virginia were picked as a first round game. Van Pelt tosses to me and he's like, what are your thoughts? And I said, this is the first time the people of West Virginia have ever cheered against something called Steve Austin in their life. And it killed and they loved it. And I was like, yes. And then this was also the year that, so you were still in college then, Duncan. This was the year the bracket got released early. It leaked. So like, yeah, this is the year it leaked early. So everyone knew. So there was no reason to watch the CBS thing. So long story short, CBS, it was the lowest rated selection show CBS has ever had. And we did like a really big rating. And I took all the credit for it. And I was like, yeah,
it's all you.
People love that Steve Austin joke.
Deflect nothing, accept everything.
That's awesome.
That's great, man. That's super relatable too in so many more, professions and careers than just yours. All right, we're going to get to our finishing segment here. Undrafted. Hopefully have some fun with this one. So what I got for you, the first one, is I want you to give me a college player right now that is currently not on draft boards, the overlooked player that you think has a chance at the next level.
Dude, this one's tough. I would say like one of the guys on Baylor, maybe like Davion Mitchell. Might be a good answer. Like I feel like Baylor's whole team to me feels like guys that are going to be playing for like either the Spurs or the Raptors. In 5 years, you're gonna look up like you're gonna just, none of the guys are gonna get drafted. Jared Butler will get drafted. He's great. He's awesome. But they just feel like they have a bunch of guys like that are, and that's what makes them tick, and that's what makes them so good. Because like Gonzaga, when you watch Gonzaga play, it's obvious why they're good. Like Jalen Suggs might be the number one pick, and Corey Kispert is a young Duncan Robinson, and Drew Timmy's awesome. They're just absolutely loaded. Baylor, it's a little more confusing if you're not like really plugged into what's going on with like basketball teams. You're like, I don't get it. They got like one guy and they play good team defense, but like, how is this happening? And the answer is all those guys are better than NBA scouts or whatever we'll give them credit for. So I guess lock me in on Davion Mitchell because he's probably the second best player on their team. So yeah,
I like that. All right, second one. I'm from Kansas City, Mark. I know you're a Midwest guy, so I need you to give me your underappreciated aspects of the Midwest.
Honest to God, I'm not saying this to pander. It's Kansas City. Kansas City is the most underrated city in the country, I think.
Whoa.
I love Kansas City. I love the barbecue. I love the people. I love the Power Light District. I love the Big 12 tournament being held there.
Yes.
Every time I've been to Kansas City 5 times and it's awesome. And there aren't a lot of cities in the Midwest I love. Minneapolis is awesome, but it's like it's entered the so underrated, it's overrated territory. But I like Minneapolis a lot. Columbus is great. What was the question? What's the best thing about the Midwest?
You crushed it.
Yeah,
honestly.
no, we're rolling with Kansas City. You can't change your answer now.
It seems like pandering, but
it felt like pandering.
We'll let it ride.
I mean, the best thing about the Midwest is the Indy 500. You've been to the 500.
You said Kansas City, my friend.
You've been to the 500 though, Davis, right?
No, I haven't actually. I know. I'm sorry.
I like that answer though too, the Indy 5, because I've heard legendary things.
We got to get you guys there, man. It's unbelievable. It's the largest sporting event in the world. The one-day sporting event. There's like 500,000 people there. It's wild.
Sign me up.
Yeah, you sold me.
So.
But by the way, Kansas City is that answer. We're marking in Kansas City.
Last one. I want your person in sports media. Not the mainstream guys, but maybe kind of an up and comer that you feel. Not that you need to give too much credit to the potential opposition here, but somebody in sports media where you value their takes.
This is so mean, dude.
Putting you on the hot seat.
You understand how political sports media is. You understand that
you gotta deflect credit somewhere, pal.
And we don't know. We're outside of that. We're adamant about that. So we don't know.
You know who I'll give a shout out to? This is a good answer. This will play well. I want to give a shout out to Caleb Presley at Barstool, who was a walk-on football player at North Carolina, and everything that dude puts out, he's not really sports media, he's just like a comedian, but everything that dude puts out, I die laughing. When I watch his videos, I like the hot fudge sundae stuff he does or whatever, where he's got the dude eating the sundae. It's hilarious, dude. He's so funny, and that's a good. Is that a good answer?
That's a great answer.
You really crushed all three.
Like, I mean, I want to shout out Charlotte Wilder. I work with her at Fox Sports. I think she's awesome, and she's been killing it lately. Like that, I'd say an answer like that. But even Charlotte, if I said Charlotte would be like, "Come on, like that's pandering. Get the hell out. You know what you're doing there." So, I'll say Caleb.
That's a great answer. It's the my favorite is the giant suits that he wears and his stuff, like, and throughout the video they get progressively bigger and just don't even come close to fitting. That's
they cut to the faces he makes when he's like real serious. Dude, he's hilarious. He's the best. And you want to talk about a guy who going back to like what Van Pelt told me, like that's a guy who I feel like has that part figured out, where he's like, I'm not going to try to be anybody but myself. I'm going to be Caleb Presley. I'm going to let it go. And he's figured it out, man. And he might not be for everybody, but if he's not for you, you and I can't be friends. I'll put it that way. He's hilarious to me. So.
All right, man. Well, Mark, thanks for joining us. As always, I know you're a busy guy, so appreciate you taking the time.
It was a pleasure, boys. We should do it again at some point when it makes sense. And yeah, that's that. So I don't know. Welcome to the podcast world, by the way. I didn't officially like you took a hiatus, Duncan. You started the pod way back in the day. You took a hiatus. You're back now. Are we technically competition? How do you feel about that?
No, I view it as more of a collaborative effort. Yeah. We might be on different platforms, talking about different things, but I really do think we're all in this together.
It's a rising tide lifts all boats situation.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Man. Thank you.
Sweet.